My name is Vinay Solanki. I work as the head of Napino Digital Solutions department at Napino. And we run these events once every month, covering different areas of IoT. I'm really glad that you all are here with us today and to hear from our speakers and our keynote speakers as well. So before we start, I just want to say and share some logistics for the day. There will be a quiz in the event, which will start after the panel discussion. So just please keep that in mind that once I inform you to start the quiz, you can go ahead with that. There is also a feedback option for all of you as an attendee to give your feedback on the screen. And there should be a Q&A option where you can ask your questions. So feel free to ask your questions as you go forward and as and when it comes in your mind on the Q&A section. I'll be moderating all the questions and answers at the end after the panel discussion. So once again, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the event, which is going to focus on designing scalable and secure IoT hardware, especially for how can we do that in India. I think all of you who have joined would have at least heard that as an economy, I think, and as a country, for us to grow, we have to start building capability in multiple areas. And one of the area is manufacturing. And when I say manufacturing, I don't only mean manufacturing the electronic products, but I also mean like manufacturing various devices, the components that comes in those products or modules. I think as an economy, for us to compete with the likes of China, it is very important that we start understanding what is the importance of creating an end-to-end ecosystem of the manufacturing supply chain, starting from producing components and modules to even radios and antennas, and able to create everything within the economy and within the country. Today, I think we are talking a lot about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Even our dear Prime Minister have stated that for India to grow and to compete well, we need to start becoming self-reliant and self-dependent. So I think the topic today that we are going to cover is covering areas like what is important for India in order to fill the gap to become a manufacturing powerhouse. And especially today, when most of the Western world and many other larger players are looking for alternative markets to go and get their work done. And India could be very well one of them. I think personally, I have seen some traction already building up where customers are reaching out to start building their products in India as an alternative, maybe as a plan B, or maybe as the only plan. So I think that is very important. Now, if you look at IoT as a market, I think many companies, including the Gartner and McKinsey of the world, have predicted that IoT is one of the technology that will create value in terms of hundreds of $billions, which means India, to pick it up, have to be strong at software, which is a critical part of IoT stack, have to be strong at hardware, and also providing connectivity and services. I think we already do very well in terms of producing some of the world-class softwares and service supports model. What is remaining is that can we really do well on hardware side as well? So that's the topic for today. Before we start, I would like to thank our partners. One is IoT NCR, which is one of the world's third largest IoT community with 8,000 plus members. I was fortunate to be part of the founding team of this community, which also runs multiple technology events. And our second partner is LIFE, which stands for Leader and Innovators Forum, and another forum that was started by a few people to bring together the leaders to share their knowledge with the audience. So these two are our partners as well for today. I would like to also thank the technology team who are helping us to broadcast this to you. Now, going forward, what we will be doing is we will be hearing from some of the subject matter experts. So as I said, again, to reiterate the logistics, there is a Q&A window for you to ask your question. There is a feedback window to give your feedback. And please remember, there is a quiz at the end of the event after the panel discussion, which will be timed. There will be 10 questions in the quiz that you have to answer And we might also have a winner that will be announced later on through email. So, without any further ado and further delay, I would like to invite our first speaker of the day, who is the keynote speaker for this event today, Mr. Ashish Khare. Ashish is also a dear friend of mine. I know him for a long time, and he has been working in the industry for a very, very long time. Ashish heads the IoT and the smart cities business at Wipro Limited and GM. I understand that Ashish brings a lot of technology expertise, and I know that he speaks at multiple events on various topics, including IoT and other digital solutions area. So over to you, Ashish, to introduce further about you to the audience and to share with us your insights. I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vinay, and good morning to you all. And thanks for taking out time on a weekend. As rightly said by Vinay, while IoT is on its growth trajectory, and in fact, this is an inflection point, and various analysts talking about devices growing anywhere between a few trillion to the hundreds of trillion over a period of 5 to 10 years. It is important for us to understand that we identify right set of areas for us as a country where we should invest, and we take a lead at this stage. Device anyway is one of the most important aspect in IoT solution. While we have four major layers, including device, which is an edge component, the network, the cloud, and the application. And on application side, many of us talk about AI, machine learning, and so many other things, which basically is visible to customers and users clearly. But if device cannot throw right data at right time with optimal cost, then all these models in AI and ML are useless. We have seen some of the countries taking lead in device journey initially, while India has done its own bit as such. It's not that we are not there. We do have good IoT device ecosystem even today. But looking at our strength and Make in India drive, we are still having a long way to go. And that's where this topic is quite relevant today, where we talk about how do we design secure and scalable IoT devices in India. And I believe innovation is the key, because if we do something which 10 other countries are already doing, then we will have challenges like price competition, challenges like experiences being there in market for long, or the startup proposition and all. But if we have something which is niche, innovative, then whole situation is different. If we talk about innovation, there are many sayings which are there. Like as per Jeff Dan's, innovation is something fresh, new, original, or improved that creates value. But the quote which I like most is something quoted by Government of New Zealand, that innovation is the creation, development, and implementation of a new product, process, or service with the aim of improving efficiency, effectiveness, and competitive advantage. In current parley, related to this topic, this quote suits the best, while in different scenarios, people do define innovation in different ways. If you look at Gartner latest report on IoT standards and protocols, it has few technologies which are on a up and certain technologies which are well established. And there are different time frames which are defined for technologies like Bluetooth, LoRa, and OPC, which are the already real and adoption is quite good. NB-IoT is picking up fast from both perspectives. One, getting those shared networks, which is a mandatory requirement for NB-IoT. And second, of course, getting right set of devices for this. But it's a beginning, or it's a initial years or days right now. 5G is all about data, data, and data. So while voice will also be there, but 5G will have maximum monetization coming from data. Although horizon scene is 5 to 10 years, but this is the time to look at innovating on devices in 5G so that we get an early mover advantage. While there are other technologies we do have to invest on in parallel, looking at unique solution requirements. So if we look at this chart, we can't say that one technology is good enough. People can choose which technology is suitable for the set of industry or the type of industry they are servicing. But these are some of the areas which are critical and are going to give differentiation and growth. If you look at device innovation, it's already happening. We are talking about smart toothbrushes, beauty mirrors, tables, pillows, beds. By putting sensors on pillow and bed, you can know that you are having sound sleep or not. So all those innovations are happening and new things are coming every second day. Edge analytics is one area which will drive innovation on a far edge side, on a device and sensor side. Even if we say 5G can transmit high bandwidth, but from IoT standpoint, if we have compute and analytics close to the source, that's always better. There are new type of sensors which are coming and will keep coming through these innovations. We are having in-room radars to detect people and objects, which can be used for remote assistant. We have wave for precision distance and location sensing. We have biological sensing for blood water content sensors. Third, and one of the critical parameter on device matters, a low cost sensor. The reason cost is an important factor in device is because IoT success in mass deployments lies in numbers in thousands and millions. Pilots are something which have been happening, and many of the pilots do not convert to real project or a mass rollout mainly because of cost factors. And when we look at ROI, which in IoT use cases is expected to be something between 1.5 to 3 years, we suffer because of cost of technology, right from device to connectivity to cloud. An innovation journey has to move around that how do we make first a device cost effective and second a solution cost effective based on the type of device, which means adding edge capabilities as much as required, which are apt without increasing the device cost significantly. There are various wireless technologies which are up in the market, and these are important aspects when we talk about devices, design, innovation, and scalability. So device does not play a role only on connecting to the system or to a machine or to provide an HMI interface, but also plays a role in defining how data will flow. However good communication technology is available, if we don't get right set of devices which can communicate on that network, on that technology, it's incidental. It's just there. We had LoRa and Sigfox for long, but adoption has not been that high as it should have been. While technologies are fantastic, we are getting NB-IoT. We struggle today to get right set of devices on NB-IoT. And in 5G, anyway, it's at the beginning. LEO is another area which is growing for remote locations connectivity specifically. For IoT device connectivity with low cost, low bandwidth, this can be a good option where public networks availability like 5G or 4G is limited. Another area which is moving fast is backscatter networking, which basically operate by remodulating ambient wireless signals such as Wi-Fi.
I think we are losing your video, Mr. Khare. Maybe there is some network issue on your end.
This is going to stay. But one trend which is growing and is a positive move on adoption of LoRa is building IoT. Conversion of building sensors to LoRa-enabled sensors is a good area to work on, and this is something which has still not matured. So while people are working in this direction, not enough vendors, not enough manufacturers available in building IoT space. And good part is this has been realized not only by traditional IoT players, but also by traditional building players or BMS players. I was in one of the forum which was organized by FSAI a couple of days back, and BIoT was the topic which everyone wanted to talk about because they are looking beyond basic IBMS aspects. Wave as such is a differentiation in market, gives a lot of benefits in terms of high bandwidth communication, and can be exploited by Wi-Fi and 5G big time. Can be used for multiple usage like airport security scanning. And good part is this spectrum is relatively unused as compared to the lower frequency spectrums. Now, if we look at other aspect, and which is one of the important topic for today, is on security. And we had seen in 2016 a botnet attack, the Mirai, which is a malware through video cameras. And it's not about capturing one camera. This DDoS attack was on thousands of cameras and then associated home routers and NAS, impacting DNS, resulting in many services, including Twitter, Reddit, GitHub, Netflix, getting impacted. And this is not the first time an attack has happened using IoT devices. We all have heard about grid coming down in Russia many years back. So security remains a key challenge, and we all need to acknowledge that in operations technology, in IoT, security is still not matured, and challenge lies at every layer. So while device layer is something which people have started taking a cognizance of and started working on, but what people are trying to work right now is to handle security on a data ingestion point, which can be a gateway or a router where it connects with network and go further. But having
Mr. Ashish Khare, sorry, just let you know we are running over time. It's 30 minutes. So yeah.
Sure, Vinay.
Thank you.
So manufacturing maturity is one of the important aspects in this, where we have limited compliance being followed by manufacturers, and there are many examples, including weak passwords, Bluetooth pairing getting open, email accesses, and this poses a threat of attacks. Ultimately, continuous security vulnerability assessment on firmware and softwares is the requirement for any intelligent device. And if that is not focused on after device is manufactured, then this challenge will remain. There are many security threats which are related to deployment and management maturity. Update being mandatory and mechanism has to be secure. Users need to be educated on various potential risks. Like in one of the instances, it was a USB flash drive which was used in Iran to explode. Then industrial espionage, where a interactive IoT doll was creating challenge and Germany had to ban it. Ransomware, and one of the incidents was in Trump's inauguration speech, where 70% of Washington DC cameras were infected by ransomware. And then the last one is rogue devices, which we need to always be cognizant of and take that into account when we plan overall design. So I'll conclude here, and then we'll be open for question and answer as it comes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Ashish Khare. I think this was a very insightful coverage on the spectrum of IoT area, IoT solutions, and especially I think when you covered some of the latest connectivity technology, which are very important, like especially 5G or low orbiting satellites. I think these are very relevant in the future, especially for the ecosystem players who are building IoT solutions to evaluate and to consider into their design, especially the security part, but even focusing on like what are the demand going to come up in the next 2 to 3 years from the global IoT market. Instead of just building things on old technologies like 2G and 3G, people should focus and see what they can do in the future. So thanks very much for your time. I would like to now call upon our next speaker for the day, Mr. Sanjeev Keskar. Mr. Sanjeev is also the MD and CEO of Arvind Consultancy. But let me tell you, like, he also brings a few decades of experience along with him. He has been an MD of Arrow Electronics in the past and few other companies like PMC, Sierra, and so on. I think one of the veteran who understands the market, the technology, both very, very well. And as I understand, Mr. Sanjeev is also engaged with some bodies to foster the ecosystem of component and module makers in the country, such as STPI. So, Mr. Sanjeev, now over to you, sir. Please take it over and share your insights with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vinay. Good morning, everyone. It is really pleasure and honor to be here with you today, talking about IoT. And what I'm going to cover over next 7 to 8 minutes is about opportunities and challenges in IoT space. We have seen an industry revolution from steam engines to electricity to computerization, and now we are talking about robotics, AI, and IoT and machine learning. So we have really evolved over last so many years into the high productivity, high efficiency industry. So let's first try to understand what is IoT. Actually, we are living in two different worlds till now. One was operational technology, where we talk about embedded electronics. When it comes to IoT, we talk about sensors, processing, and connectivity. Connectivity can be of any time, like sub-gigahertz, LoRa, or it can be Wi-Fi, BLE, 3G, 4G, GPRS, and now we are talking about 5G. So there are various forms of connectivity which connect us to the cloud or server farms. But the knowledge base of the operation technology is very high when it comes to embedded design, but it's low when it comes to cloud and information technology. Whereas there is another world of information technology where they know about World Wide Web and servers and cloud, but they have a very limited understanding of the embedded electronics and the embedded software. IoT is actually a conduit which connects the sensors and the embedded world to the cloud. And moving forward, everything is becoming smart, everything is becoming connected. And this IoT revolution is going to play a very, very important role in every aspect, in all verticals, right from automotive electronics, industrial electronics, be it consumer electronics, home appliances, or medical electronics. We will find IoT is everywhere. Now, if we just want to see what are the various opportunities IoT is bringing across these sectors, then we know smart city project is happening, and in smart city you will have a smart lighting, smart traffic management, smart parking, smart utility services. Similarly, buildings have infrastructure like HVAC, security, lighting. Everything is going to be connected. In health monitoring, actually, in a country like India, where the number of doctors are limited, remote patient monitoring and elderly health care, as well as managing the critical parameters related to health connected to the physicians and doctors is very, very important aspect. Similarly, electric vehicles and automotive are getting connected with OBD2 devices or connected car or ADAS will be driving a lot of applications into automotive domain. And in home consumer devices, we find your washing machine, water purifier, refrigerator, everything is becoming smart and connected. So lot of applications are emerging. Industrial IoT is another very big area where small and medium industry will have a huge play because it will call for a lot of customization of the application. Now, if we to really analyze what are the key challenge India is particularly, I'm seeing when it comes to electronics as a whole, then our biggest challenge is about value addition today. For any electronic product, 40% value is in IP and technology, 40% value is in components and be it semiconductor, passive component, connectors, or PCBs. And then the 20% value is into assembly, which is the EMS activity predominantly, then your quality, testing, and packaging, and everything. What's happening today is we have a great talent, but that talent is either working in a captive design center of a global company or in design services company. There are very handful of product innovation companies who are designing and manufacturing product in India. So most of the time we are missing out on this 40% value of IP and technology. Similarly, component ecosystem is completely missing in India. So we miss out on the 40% value which is contributed by components. Now we left with only the EMS activity and manufacturing activity, which gives you anywhere value recognition of 15% or maximum 17%. And this is the biggest challenge we have. Till now, we have missed out on the value addition. But moving forward, when we are talking about IoT revolution, we have to definitely focus on IP creation in India, which is in our control. And we have to recognize that 40% value of IP and technology by doing product innovation of all the IoT products in India. And I think we are gearing up, we have capability, we have brains who can develop these innovative products. As Mr. Khare talked about need of innovation, I think we have to play on our strength. Component ecosystem will take some time to evolve, but adding value by creating IP is in our control, and that's what we should be focusing on. My previous employer, Aero Electronics, collaborated with Ministry of Electronics and STPI, and we have set up a IoT Open Lab at Bangalore. I want to talk about this Open Lab at this forum because this one initiative is really going to contribute to create IP and technology and also focus on making startups successful. See, today there are almost more than 1,000 startups across India who are working in IoT space. But you know what is the success rate? Success rate is not even 20%. And then we have to really analyze the reasons why this startup failed. And that's exactly what we did in our IoT Open Lab, where STPI has appointed me as a chief mentor of this lab. What we have done is Arrow being a technology partner with all the semiconductor companies, there is going to be advocacy to the startups about the right platform which can make them techno-commercially successful. Second challenge startup faces during development work, if they face any software issue or a hardware issue, they don't get the required technical support. So there is an application team of Arrow sitting in this IoT lab who will act as a mentor or who will do handholding in case this startup face any technical issue. The third challenge startup face is about time to market. They don't get samples on the time. They don't get required EDKs, engineering development kits on the time. So we have kept a complete sample bank of sensors, microcontrollers, as well as connectivity modules in this lab so that your design cycle time will be shortest with the sample support readily available. The fourth challenge what startup face is about the test equipment. When you have to test IoT products right from sub gigahertz up to 5 gigahertz, the test equipments are very expensive. So Arrow and STPI has invested close to $500,000 to set up a world-class test facility in this lab, which can help you to test all the products and complete your project in a shortest possible time. So, this is a center of excellence which is set up by STPI in Bangalore, which can really help startup to be successful. It is going to put them on the right platform. It is going to reduce their design cycle time. It is going to help them in the handholding or problem solving, and it will help them in testing their product. So this is one of the unique initiative which will definitely help to create IP and technology in India for IoT. And I personally think such IoT open labs should be there at least in all major metros. And I really want to congratulate STPI on this strategic initiative. I thought this is my key message that high value addition in IoT is a key requirement Because if we just focus on only manufacturing IoT product, it will give us only 10 to 15% value recognition. We should really look for 40-50% value of every product which moving forward is going to go into mass production. And that's the key message I thought I will deliver today. Thank you very much. I will be available during the panel discussions as well as any Q&A at the end of all the presentation. I'll be definitely available to address those questions. Thank you. Over to Mr. Vinay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanjeev Keskar. I think this was really wonderful. The key point that you stressed on, which I think even Mr. Khare covered in a way, that value generation is important for Indian ecosystem, especially on the IoT product perspective or IoT solutions perspective. And I think this initiative that you are taking with STPI is very, very key. In fact, we are getting some questions from students or probably from enthusiasts as well on the event, that how can startups or students can participate or engage, which we can cover at the end of the event today. I really appreciate your time, sir.
Sir, I have given a website link on my last slide.
Okay.
So one can go to STPI IoT Open Lab website and register themselves.
Okay, great. And we will also share the website link on the window for everyone to see. Thank you very much, Mr. Sanjeev. Our next speaker for the day is Mr. Inderveer Singh. Mr. Inderveer is the CEO and founder of EV Age Ventures. EV Age Ventures is one of the company which focuses on R&D in the domain of automotive. And I think they focus, as I understand from Mr. Inderveer, they do a lot of innovative work in electronic vehicles design and architecture. And also it applies to other automotive segments as well, such as SUVs and so on. So I would like to invite Mr. Inderveer to take us through his topic for the day. Thank you very much.
Unmute, please.
Hi, Inderveer, you're on mute right now, Mr. Inderveer. You're not audible. Your microphone is not audible.
Audible now?
Yeah, it's audible. Can you please restart? Yeah, if you don't, thank you.
Apologize. Hi, friends. This is Inderveer. I'm founder and CEO of EVH. We at EVH pride ourselves on being an R&D focused company, designing and developing electric and connected vehicles ground up. IoT is one of the most critical factors in the automobile industry. And my focus area today is to identify how the convergence of IoT and automobiles is going to redefine the mobility industry. IoT has been the theme of, the size of the industry has been the theme of the topic today. I thought I'll try and quantify it as per McKinsey. In the next 5 years, the market is going to be anywhere between $2.5 to $6 trillion. And that is a massive opportunity. And out of this, around $150 odd billion worth of IoT products could be used on the automobiles. So that's our focus area, and I would like to take you through this. The first thing, which I would like to tell everybody is that we need to have a mindset change in designing products which are connected. The devices need to have a market and a market fit. And the market is changing as we speak. Our focus has to be creating devices which fit into or plug and play into a whole ecosystem. Automobiles, is one part of it. It's a $2 trillion opportunity as a whole ecosystem, out of which some part will be played by IoT devices and protocols, and they will help enable this industry to be more efficient. And for designers, for students over here, business leaders, the thought process has to be how they look at the whole ecosystem and not just at a product. Unless you can target an ecosystem, you'll not be able to create value, which is what we discussed in the previous presentation. And we have logistics and automobiles working together, creating a large enough ecosystem which we need to observe at. So that's my thing. One, need to have an ecosystem approach and create enabling devices for these ecosystems. That should be the outlook for people. And the second biggest thing is, industry trends are not to be viewed by growths, CAGRs. They are to be viewed by technology convergences. Now, when we talk about IoT devices, there are a few convergences which are happening. Computing, the silicon industry, we have the Moore's law, which says the packaging of a transistor is going to increase year on year. Data storage, which is driven by Kreider's law. Digital imaging, which is Hendy's law. And then the network capacity, which is driven by Butter's law. So these are the analysis which you have to do and understand when these technologies will converge. And what I speak is relevant to the automobile domain. It may be different for buildings, it may be different for other IoT devices, but at large, these are the convergences which will define the future of connected devices. And we believe that these all have reached an inflection point which will make these devices cost effective, productionable, and highly useful. So any future devices, please take into consideration what these laws state, what will be the future in next 6 months, 1 year, because effectively developing a product is a process, and it's a 3 to 5 year process. It's just not a 2 or 3 month journey. And that's the mindset we need to have. Now, this is a question for everybody. What would be the single most important IoT device in the automobile of the future? We can have the answers later on, but it's the antenna. We are going to have low orbit satellites communicating, making communication possible. And this is what is going to redefine mobility for all. So anybody trying to work on IoT devices for the automobiles need to focus on this. Why we need to do that? There are certain mega trends that are defining the future of mobility. A car will not be a car, it will be a mobile phone on wheels. And this is going to be enabled with IoT devices and sensor fusions. And which are the mega trends if you talk about, electrification? We are in the EV industry, but that's what's happening. But we need IoT devices where we can have charging services launched, charging stations mapped, state of health, state of charge of the battery mapped on, and real-time data passed on to a processing server, to the application layer through the network or the cloud, and improve through OTA the real-time performance of the vehicle. Vehicles are going to be driven by subscription service. Ownership is going to move from individual owners to fleets, and hence monitoring of vehicles are going to be more critical than ever. Autonomous driving is the future. ADAS is there upon us already. It's going to move to full autonomy. We're going to move to multimodal mobility. Delhi, we already see this happening. People travel from metro to Ola or e-rickshaws that are available over there. So, this is happening, and this is going to only increase as we move forward. Vehicles are going to be a marketplace, a hub for service transactions, because essentially we spend 2.5 hours a day in India in an automobile, which is the second largest time spent or attention span that a person can give. Somebody has to monetize it at some point. And then there will be a lot of on-demand features. The mobile-based aggregators are a part of this, but it's going to go even bigger. So these are the trends. So when we talk about value creation, we need to go from how the global laws are working out, how physics is working, and how it is mapping on to your business. We move on to what's going to happen in the car next. These are the kind of sensor fusions that are going to happen. There's going to be a lidar, which will help in ADAS and potentially autonomous driving, telematics control unit. There are going to be accelerometer, gyroscopes, vehicle gateways, DSRC modem for connectivity, ultrasonic sensors, different sets of radars, infrared sensors, odometry, ECUs, onboard displays, GPS and HD maps, which will move to immersive maps. Of course, the small camera. So this is a fusion of sensors that are going to work. Now, in 2018, and that's the vehicles we are developing, the average amount of data processed is around 25 gigabytes per hour. Now, that's the challenge that we have as future designers. If anybody is thinking of doing something in the automotive domain of IoT. So we have at EVA tried to structure something in partnership with the cloud service providers, and we have created layers of product. We have the key, the fleet apps. These are the front end applications which are moved to our connected vehicle platform. We need to have ultra efficient API gateways for this amount of data to move in. And then we have application service, data services, and our rules engine or message broker, which take in the data, use AI, ML, process it, and improve it. So this is a roadmap we have tried to create on future vehicles. Just to showcase the complexity of devices, connected vehicle, these are the uses that would be there. There would be a telematics unit, IoT unit, and user registration. We would have a lot of lifecycle management going on, connected vehicle data ingested, which would lead to potentially anomaly detection, alerting, trip aggregation processing, driver safety score processing, notifications, location-based services. So, a small set of sensors opens a world which is so vast. That is the beauty of what an IoT device, well engineered, can bring to the end customer. And these complexities have to be taken into notice. And with IoT happening, we can integrate this whole process with manufacturers, dealers, consumers, drivers. And that's the beauty of a connected device. And as far as connected vehicle solutions are concerned, we need secure data consumption. Driver behavior can be monitored, anomaly detection, diagnostics, location-based service, as I mentioned before. So what are the key important things here? Excuse me. Excuse me. I'll need a minute, please. So we need to focus on efficient APIs, as I mentioned earlier, bulk activation of TCUs, workflow has to be provisioned well, work on JITs, and automatically detect, generate security transactions. That's going to create secure devices. And there has to be secure protocols. Currently, MQTT and HTTPS are the protocols going on for OTA updates. So this is what would be needed to create a secure device as we move forward. This is a small example of what IoT can do. We have the camera, sensor data, and telemetry. It goes to the telemetry fusion unit. Connectivity, which could be through a triple band GNSS antennas, which can provide large amount of data on CCSDS protocols. Move it to a IoT core, which would be situated on cloud, and try to create models which will help. So this is going to detect whether a driver is paying attention or not. So thank you. This is what I had to offer. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Mr. Indraveer. First of all, today, and you have seen that you have to our audience. And I think one of the key area that you covered, which is very interesting, is like how do we look at a vehicle in the future, right? And with IoT, right? How the vehicle is actually going to become like a platform and not just a car. It's not just a mechanical device anymore with some electronics inside it. It's more like a platform. I think even I've heard Mr. Elon Musk talks about a lot around vehicle as a platform where it can offer multiple services. So thanks for bringing that insight. We'll move over to the next speaker of the day, Mr. Ravindra Barlinge. I would like to call him on the stage. So Mr. Ravindra is the VP in R&D area at Endurance Technologies. As I understand, Mr. Ravindra brings a lot of experience in the R&D domain, both from hardware and application perspective, and as well as he has an area of interest in terms of security in the solutions side. So that is very interesting topic because I think today, apart from covering designing an IoT hardware which is scalable and covering the use case, security is very important. So I would like to call him on the stage to please share his thoughts with the audience. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vinay, and thank you, Napino Knowledge Series, for this opportunity. I hope I am audible as well as visible to you. Hello.
Yes, you are audible and visible properly.
So I will be speaking on IoT devices secure by design. And let us look into the past as to why should we look into the security aspects. So I have mentioned, say, 5 worst IoT attacks that have happened. And they are quite, you can say, very important per se, if we are looking into the designing of IoT. So one of the attack was on, you can say, St. Jude Medical, you can say, hospital. And basically, they had implantable cardiac devices. And this particular cardiac devices had vulnerabilities, and it could allow or it could access that particular device. And once it could access that particular device, it could deplete the battery, at the same time administer the, you can say, shocks to the patient. At the same time, you can say it could change the pacemakers, you can say, values. So definitely it was a big issue at that particular time. And at the same time, the defibrillators, which are used to monitor and control patient heart functions, that also it was monitoring and controlling. So just look into this particular aspect, that how it can impact us. Another attack was where a Jeep was hacked, and especially the speed was changed by slow, by fast, by changing the steering, and so on and so forth. Now just imagine a vehicle traveling on a road, and these kind of things happen with it. So what will happen? One of the another, you can say, very difficult attack was on a baby heart monitor, and it was basically, you can say, controlled by using hackers, and especially the babies were given the heart troubles. So another very difficult aspect of it. One of the, you can say, another attack was related to the TrendNet, and where the cameras were hacked, and they were being, you can say, they were used for looking into the places where they are being used. So just at the same time listening. So the entire privacy was at stake. And already Mr. Khare has spoken about Mirai, and how it has attacked the video cameras, and it had taken down the Twitter, Reddit, CNN, and so on and so forth. So this is the kind of world that we are going to face in future, and naturally the attacks are going to increase, you can say, day by day. In fact, in last month itself, on October 6th, there was a HEH botnet. It launched a brutal attack on IoT devices and systems, and the aspect, what it was doing was, it was wiping out the data of routers and IoT, and it had this particular disk wiping feature which was present in the code. And not only that, it had the feature of it could attack and remove the entire device firmware as well. So just imagine the kind of world we are getting into, and why it has to be very, very secure. So how do we actually look into, how do we make the devices secure by design? So what are the main IoT building blocks that need to be secure? So definitely the IoT platform, I will say, the IoT endpoints, because it consists of the distributed sensors and actuators. And it also has the IoT endpoints, the machine-to-machine kind of devices. Also, you can say the edge computing side of it, where the processing is happening on the same physical entity, and there are certain OT protocols, and also the IT protocols like TCP/IP, and the edge analytics, and real-time analytics, and in-band analytics as such. also need to you can say secure the connectivity side of it, because it offers us the kind of reliable and secure, you can say, connectivity for the edge devices. We have to look into the IoT and cloud platform, because here the operations of the infrastructure happen. Then there is a data storage, there is big data analytics that happens, and at the same time, these are very important aspects from a business transformation. And the last is naturally the visualization, where all the applications or the apps sit. So how do we then look into this particular thing? So we have to have an end-to-end kind of, you can say, system which takes care of the data, the applications, the communication, and the users part of it. And we need to secure everything as far as whether it is IoT endpoints to visualization. We need to secure everything. So especially if I'm looking at the IoT endpoints or edge computing, so definitely we need to look at the rogue endpoints and edge devices. And also we need to look into the compromised, how the endpoints are getting compromised, and what kind of data leakage that happens. If we are looking into the connectivity, naturally we need to look into the different attacks that are happening, whether it is man in the middle attack, or kind of denial of service kind of attack, or kind of unauthorized kind of attack which happens. So we need to secure from those angles. Especially from a visualization or IoT cloud platform, we also must look into the vulnerable of web applications and APIs kind of things, because there can be, you can say, API interfaces that can lead to a denial of service. At the same time, we also need to look into the web applications and the kind of security flaws that might be there. When we are looking into the targeted kind of attacks, it can be more so into the persistent kind of threats that happen. So we need to do the threat modeling, we need to do the threat assessments per se. At the same time, look into how do we ensure that our devices or something like that, they are not damaged and the valuable data is not lost. So when we say security by design, it is basically an approach where we have to go for the software and hardware. So software, naturally, I am talking of firmware as well. So software and hardware development, where security is built in from the beginning. And it is definitely not as late addition after a hacking incident. So it should not be that a hacking incident has happened, and then we are thinking as a kind of in retrospect what we should be doing. So the security has to be built in when we are designing itself. And at the same time, one of the inclusion of security design, so we need to look into the security design principles, we need to look into the technologies, the processes, the methods, tools, and also the governance at every stage of the IoT journey. So this is a kind of thing where we need to look at each and every aspect of how do we make our IoT devices secure from the very beginning and to the very end of the entire product development lifecycle, and not after when a hacking incident has already happened. So basically, when I'm saying this, we need to have a kind of evaluation strategies for IoT project lifecycle stage. So right from design up to operations, where there are different, you can say, stage gates, different kind of, you can say, milestones which we need to achieve. We need to ensure that all these are taken care. So especially during design, we need to look in and development, we need to look at end-to-end threat modeling. So when we are doing the hardware and software kind of aspects. At the same time, we also need to look into the device firmware deployment review that happens during the design and development time, and also look into the risk and how do we mitigate those particular risks. We also, you can say, have to keenly look into the encryption. How are we going to encrypt it, and what are the kind of privacies that we should be really, which are really very important for this particular aspect. Especially when I'm coming to a kind of testing aspect. So definitely after the end-to-end threat modeling is done, we also need to look into the kind of authentication and access control kind of reviews which have to be done. We also need to look into the fuzzing the protocol and whether they are getting fuzzed or not. And naturally the code review. At this particular time, one of the very important aspect is also the penetration testing or pen testing, which is extremely important, and for which different tools are available for doing these penetration testing. Naturally, the other aspects are the automation and other things, which also need to be, you can say, done quite properly. When we are deploying the IoT devices, again, we need to look into the whether the authentication is happening properly or not, And then we need to also look into whether there are still certain gaps which need to be covered, and we have to review those particular things. As to also the network traffic, as to whether other IoT devices are talking to it or not, how whether these devices are cyber secure or not, whether the security aspects, especially related to this, have been taken care. So when we are doing a IoT project, so we have to incorporate all these aspects of design and development, right from the design phase up to the operations, and these are quite critical, especially when we are designing. Otherwise, it cannot be really taken up as a normal, you can say, project development life cycle or a software development life cycle. We have to incorporate all these functions, we have to incorporate all these principles, all these recommendations when we are designing an IoT project. So basically, there are 7 very important properties to make the devices highly secure. And what are those? That there has to be device security rooted in hardware. So there is a root trust or hardware root trust that has had to happen. At the same time, it has to be guided with a secure evolving software, and all the security principles and practices have to be followed. So when I'm looking at the property, say for example, the hardware-based root of trust, the key questions that we need to ask as a designer, or we need to look into all these aspects, is, does the device have a unique unforgeable identity that is inseparable from the hardware? So basically, that particular device has to have a kind of unique identity, and it has to be inseparable from the hardware. So this is a very key question when we are looking at the hardware-based root of trust. When you are looking at this computing base and a small trusted computing base, one of the key questions that we should be asking ourselves is most of the device software outside the device trusted computing base? So whether where is the device software, whether it is inside or whether it is outside, and that will determine our design strength. Also, when I'm looking at the defense in depth kind of property, so we also need to look into whether the device is still protected if one of the security of other layer of devices, you can say, protected or not. So up to what depth I am giving the defense to the device. So what are those depth levels that I can really go up to, and what are those depth levels that I should take care about? Especially from a compartmentalization aspect. So whether a failure in one component of the device requires reboot of the entire device, or only that particular component needs to be looked into. So we need to really, you can say, segregate or compartmentalize the failures, especially whether the failures are happening from one component and are getting transmitted to other component, and how do we segregate all those components, and whether what is the kind of impact that one component gives to other. So that kind of compartmentalization property is extremely important. At the same time, when we are also looking into the security aspects, naturally one of the very important thing we have to look into is the certificate based authentication. So all the devices should have certificates instead of passwords and authentication. So especially, like, say we are doing, say, HTTP or we are doing FTP, so we have to have a kind of HTTPS or FTPS or so on and so forth, and we have to have a kind of certificate which gets generated when we are working on these particular security aspects. So those certificates have to be there, and that certificate will authenticate whether the device is secure or not. Then another aspect is, naturally, we have to ensure that, because when I'm talking of design by security, it is not an action, it is a kind of process. So we have to ensure that the device is continuously updated, and it should continuously take care that it should be unhackable from that particular aspects. And naturally, if still there are certain, you can say, failures that happen, then we need to also look into that whether the device is reporting failure to its manufacturer or not, or it is, you can say, whether the failure is just inside the device and it is not getting reported to the manufacturer. Because I think that is also one of the very important aspect when we are designing all the IoT devices, and especially from a security perspective. So these 7 properties are a kind of bedrock when we are designing the IoT devices. So just to, you can say, give some of the developments that are happening in the world of security, I have downloaded one, you can say, presentation on physical unclonable functions. So these particular functions cannot be cloned, and these are physical. This particular presentation has been downloaded from Maxim Integrated, but it is quite important for all of us to watch it, because this is how the future of security will come up, and also as a design security per se. So I will play this presentation.
With billions of smart devices being deployed around the world, can we really trust that our sensitive data won't end up in the wrong hands? Physically unclonable function technology, or PUF, can be the cornerstone of securing our connected world. It promises a level of protection for secret keys that surpasses what has been available only to government and financial applications, but at a cost that's appropriate for the IoT. But what is PUF, and what makes it strong enough to protect our connected world? PUF technology generates a digital fingerprint for its associated IC that can serve as a unique secret key for algorithms used in security methodologies like authentication, encryption and decryption, and anti-counterfeit. Based on the complex and variable physical and electrical properties of ICs, it is virtually impossible to clone or duplicate. Maxim's PUF implementation, called chip DNA, delivers even stronger protection. It's based on the naturally occurring random analog characteristics of fundamental MOSFET devices. By harnessing the unique noise from each chip, chip DNA technology creates a number that exhibits good randomness properties from chip to chip. With enough chip DNA PUF cells, the number will be unique for each chip. But how can we be sure that the random numbers generated will be secure? Maxim designs our chip DNA chips to limit the PUF key's exposure to attackers and to further resist physical inspection. The most secure application areas today, like banking, government, and military, use active tamper detection technology. This technology requires a battery and external sensors to detect physical attacks, and actively erases a key if the device is under attack. After all, it's much better to delete a key than let an attacker microprobe the device to access it. Chip DNA PUF technology is highly resistant to any physical inspection. The circuitry harnesses and amplifies what is essentially noise. When the PUF circuitry detects a physical inspection, its output actually changes. But another important property of a good PUF implementation is stability. Every time the PUF circuit provides a unique number, it needs to be the same, whether under normal operating conditions, in heat or cold, over time, or other wear factors. If it doesn't return the same number, then the secret key is gone and the device can no longer prove its identity. Depending on the application, this can render the device useless. It's like losing a password with no recovery mechanism, which is what we want in this case, since the device has been compromised. It's important to note that a good PUF implementation like Maxim's chip DNA is not enough to guarantee system security. For example, if a chip was designed to read a PUF key, but then store it in flash or make it accessible through a debug engine, it would be like leaving the super secure wireless key to your car on its hood. Any security technology needs to be implemented in a thoughtful way to make sure it is not an attack point. That's where Maxim's 30-plus years of advanced security expertise comes into play. From financial terminals to consumables to tokenized US government money, the application areas that we've secured over the decades runs far and wide. Now, with chip DNA PUF technology, we're bringing the highest level of security to the Internet of Things. Find out how Maxim's chip DNA.
Yeah,
So,
hi, Mr. Ravinder. Just to let you know, we are running over time.
Yeah, so I have just completed,
Okay.
Vinay. Just
Oh,
this
you're
was the last.
completed. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Great.
this
Great.
was the last
Thank
slide,
you.
and so thank you so much. And the some of the information has been taken from the public domain and web searches. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ravinder. I think this was very insightful because security is such an important aspect today, and I think you covered some of the attacks. In fact, I also keep looking at some of the reports by the companies like Subex and so on, which talks about different kind of attacks which are happening around the world on connected devices. And I think That's a pretty important area. So thank you very much. I think now we will move on to our next area of the discussion, which is a panel discussion with all the speakers. So I will request the production room to bring all the speakers on the video, please. And meanwhile, while the speakers come on, I will just reiterate the logistics. We are running a bit over time. I think this is due to a couple of connectivity issues that were faced. So please bear with us on the time front a bit more. I think once we cover the panel discussion, as I said, we will have a Q&A round, and I'm already getting a lot of questions on our window, which I'm collating and collaborating. There will be a quiz after that, which will be run by Mr. Ashish Chintal. So I think now we are getting all our speakers back on the screen. Nice to see all of you. So once again, good morning. We are still in the morning. I think I just want to reiterate that collectively, among four of you, and if you add me, we have more than 130 years of experience, which is like, I think, very, very important for the audience to know that a lot of knowledge is there on the panel. And of course, the audience is feel free to connect with each of the speaker individually if you have any direct questions. But what I will be doing is I'm going to cover some of the panel questions which are common across the theme that we presented today. So my first question is to actually I will start with Mr. Ravinder itself because we just covered the topic on security, and then we will go backward. I think you covered already some of the key drivers, the 7 areas or the building blocks, right, of designing a secured hardware. But the question is more around the security mindset and the design, right? At times, people think that if I make my hardware more secured, it will become more costlier in terms of money, and also maybe more power hungry. I don't know. And at times, it could impact the overall viability of the solution for my end customer. So maybe let me first focus on the features, and then I will think of security. So what's your take? Like, how do we go about security first thinking in our head when we talk about connected devices?
No, so my feeling is this, that I'm as a designer or something like that, and especially when we are looking at the IoT devices and its designs. So security is the most important aspect because we spoke about the kind of attacks that are happening, and whether it is a baby or whether it is a jeep or whether it is you can say the other Mirai kind of botnet or so on and so forth, or hospitals and so on and so forth. So definitely, I think that cost should not be the important factor. Definitely security is the most important factor, and that is how we should be doing things in future as well, because otherwise just to save on certain you can say mega cost, we will be we will be exposing ourselves to a big attacks, and that is definitely not acceptable.
Okay, great. I think so. My next question would be in line to our topic today, to Mr. Ashish Khare. So I think when you covered the different areas around IoT solution and different consideration on connectivity and as well as sensors and other things, and also from your experience, like what are some of the key drivers for designing a scalable solution or a scalable? Let's say even if you just talk about a device. What are the key drivers? One or two key important points to consider?
So Vinay, I believe
Hi, Mr. Khare, your voice is breaking a bit. I think. Hello. Are others able to hear Mr. Khare properly? Maybe it's my issue.
No.
No? Okay. Mr. Ashish, I think your connectivity has. Okay. Maybe you might have to rejoin. Okay. Let us give him a second. Hello?
Yeah. Is it fine now?
Now you're audible. Yeah. Now you're audible. Yep.
Sure.
Oh, we lost you again. Okay. Meanwhile, maybe you can try to rejoin Mr. Khare. Meanwhile, I will take my next question to Mr. Sanjeev while you join back. I think Mr. Sanjeev, like Mr. Keskar, like one of the key area that you covered is that how can we bring the module and the component design ecosystem into the country, and then your engagement with STPI. I think that is very important. I already got a few questions from the audience, which I shared with you earlier. But can you please help us understand, like, what are the one or two major gaps where STPI and your engagement and this lab can help to fill? Is it more in the skill set? Is it more in the terms of the supply chain of the area, or is it more of technology transfer from different countries to us?
Okay. So Vinay, thanks. I think this IoT Open Lab is going to address all the three things what you just mentioned. Okay, it is going to really help technology companies or startups to reduce their design cycle time. It is going to focus on making them successful both technically as well as commercially, and their time to market. So and problem solving with mentoring, real time mentoring. So some critical challenges we are addressing here, but the opportunity, as I mentioned today, the Wi-Fi modules, Bluetooth modules, NB-IoT modules, or 3G, 4G modules, everything we are importing, and there is a need to really create a local ecosystem of these modules, because as I mentioned, every application will have a connectivity solution, and every application will require a module. So when we are talking about Atmanirbhar, at least if we are not making semiconductor, can we really develop the modules in India, and then make the modules rather than importing those modules from China, which is happening today.
Okay. And sir, like, just to understand, like, I come from a company which also is a electronic manufacturing company, and we rely a lot on China supply chain for modules and even smaller things like cables and antennas. So any low hanging fruit that we can quickly start building in India in the shorter time frame, like 6 months to a year?
Absolutely, Vinayak. In fact, if we analyze that 40% value, what I mentioned about components, around 20 to 22% contributed by semiconductor. Leave that aside for time being, because it calls for a $5 billion investment, and always there is a big question mark who will front end. But let's talk about other building blocks of balance 20%. You have 5 to 6% by printed circuit board, okay, which is huge. Passive components like capacitors, inductors, relays. Okay, then you have displays, LEDs, LCDs. Okay, it doesn't require $5 billion investment. You can do analog components or LCD manufacturing with less than $1 billion investment. So can we focus on those items which can even give you 10, 15, 20% of value recognition? So I think we have to really prioritize how we are going to address the component manufacturing ecosystem. And I expect the production link incentive, which is announced by government recently, which is just linked to the volume of mobile phone manufacturing, it should also get linked to the value addition by these mobile phone manufacturers, because we are giving incentive on a very low value added product. Can we ask them to invest into component manufacturing?
Okay. No, that's a great point, Mr. Sanjeev. So I think Mr. Ashish Khare is back. So I think you have already heard my question, Mr. Ashish. Do you want me to repeat it, or you want to take it? You're on mute, Mr. Ashish.
Yeah, I heard your question, Vinay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
let me continue from there.
Yeah.
So from a scalable built-up perspective, so while we look at horizontal and vertical scaling as two key aspects for any solution scalability or a device or system scalability, the most important part is that how do we work from a larger ecosystem scalability, from a larger use case scalability perspective, instead of looking at one component. Having something which is mass adaptable but does not have a basic system in place doesn't help. So if we don't have a widespread NB-IoT network and we built up NB-IoT based devices, which may be the having a mass requirement, it's not going to help. So that's one key aspect to go with the ecosystem and ecosystem cost. Second aspect I would like to add here is on scalability on a device itself, which means if it is modular for certain kinds of application, it is easier to have it adopted in multiple use cases. Point solutions are going to go down over a period. People will look at more of integrated multiple solutions using one set of, or say, the few set of devices. The modularity in device would be one key aspect which will be important at least at the edge of our edge level.
Okay. Great. I think that is very important. And in fact, you and I have also discussed a few times that how can we think of designing modular hardware, which can have some plug and play capability, or at least where certain components could be swapped, like maybe an IoT gateway that can have a modular connectivity for Ethernet, RJ485, and Wi-Fi. But maybe based on the customer requirement, I can pick out a component or put in a new component and still match the cost, but without investing too much of time in ground up designing. So I think that is very important. And I see few companies in India are already looking into designing those kind of architecture. So thanks for that, Mr. Khare. My next question is to Mr. Inderveer Singh. I think you are doing a very important R&D around electric vehicles and automotive, right? And one of the topic that you covered in your slide, and which I think we look at in the market, is like a connected vehicle. My question is, like, from an India perspective, like at least in the past few years, when I see connected vehicle, I've at best seen telematic solutions, which are like GPS tracking solutions, maybe some infotainment in the car, and few solutions like tire pressure monitoring and other things. What, according to you, Mr. Indraveer, you see in the next 2 to 3 years in India, apart from these solutions which will come out as a use case in a connected vehicle, and the market will be ready to pay for it, especially the end consumer?
Yeah. So, Vinay, we need to understand the automobile market is going from a consumer-driven market to a fleet-driven market.
Okay.
So there is a big consumer behavior change that is happening. Earlier, we made a vehicle which was comfortable to sit in. A person can drive along. He can himself drive it and use it to go to the office or to the shopping center or something. Now, vehicles are more fleet-driven. Now, with fleet-driven vehicles, the use case for a connected vehicle makes far more sense, because somebody who's managing, say, a fleet of 50,000 vehicles, he would need as much data as he can get to control it, create efficiencies in controlling that. And going forward, this trend is going to continue. Of course, COVID threw a spanner in the whole connected vehicle, shared vehicle narrative. But this is a long-standing opportunity that is there. And with more and more vehicles being contracted to fleets, you will see a lot of more connections happening. That's the consumer part of it. The other part is protocols and technologies being developed for V2V communication, or V2C, which is vehicle to the city. Potentially there could be sensors across the smart city aspect, which is another important topic on the IoT part of it. So the protocols are going to be developed. There are already test cases happening. Once they are developed, it could lead to a better traffic management. Congestion is a big issue in India. B, it could lead to lesser accidents and more optimum utilization of fleets. So these will be the driving factors, and it would be one would be sensors which help in traffic management, and route optimization, which would be the next gateway for the next 2 to 3 years. Of course, for that 5G has to happen, and we need protocols set in. So that's my view on the future of IoT in India, near future.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mr. Indraveer. So I think I will have one last question, which is open to all the panelists, and anybody can take it. This is a common question, like, right? So since we have been talking about device designing and scalability plus security and other aspects, right? And from an Indian perspective or the ecosystem perspective, right? What is one advice that you can give to all the audience as a look forward? Let's say there could be mid-term career professionals here, or even students, or even experts, or startup founders. like one area that they can start looking into, apart from the software perspective, to become an expert in the future and support the India's vision of becoming a manufacturing powerhouse? Anyone can take it. We can go round robin as well. Mr. Indraveer, if you have any views on that, we can start with you.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, so I believe the most important factor to build this for a career professional or a startup founder is the importance to inculcate the mindset of design thinking. You know, hardcore engineering is something which can be learned. This is a DNA change that needs to come across, which is more difficult to master. Like security has to be embedded into the design. You need to understand the whole ecosystem and design products. These are more mindset challenges which need to be faced by people. So my 2 cents on this is focus has to be on creating excellent design thinking. Look at it as a complete ecosystem and use case of the particular device rather than just developing a device. That's the short term thinking that plagues it. So that's my take on this.
Hi,
Great, great.
Vinay.
Yeah.
I would like to add to Inderveer. See, for small and medium industry, the best opportunity to start with in IoT is industrial IoT, because in consumer automotive it's a game of big players, but when it comes to industrial IoT, when you are talking about industry specific machine control or some data acquisition and monitoring system, then it requires a lot of customization or individual design, and that's the area where big companies will not be competing and medium and small company can do that customization for individual industry, and then you can build a competency by working. And industrial IoT is a very large segment across all industries, and most of the industries are looking for cloud connectivity. So I think that's the area small and medium industry should focus on.
Okay,
I will
great.
add up to what Sanjeev said. Especially from a medium and small industries, there are a lot of brownfield industries, and they do not really have that kind of connectivity and those kind of understandings. And how do they convert their brownfield into greenfield, or at least make it communicable or connected kind of machines, and so on and so forth. So I think there is a huge opportunity there, especially for the you can say young entrepreneurs, and also the you can say mid you can say senior professionals there, I think, and organizations as well.
Great. Mr. Khare, any views from you?
You're on mute.
I'll just add to what Ravindra and Sanjeev have said. Of course, the area for the small and medium businesses is wherever there is a customization required. And one key aspect there is enabling management to the various existing systems. Because management is one of the things which is growing and need is being felt, and adoption is going high across industries, including buildings, including airports, ports, everywhere. The large number of customers want to have IoT management or IoT managed services as comparable to IT managed services. And all of us know that gap today is such where IoT managed services is sitting at some 2000 to 2005 stage, where IT managed services was earlier. And this 15 years plus process gap can be bridged by having better connection to existing systems using various converters, adapters, and sensors and devices.
I think that's great. So I think what you all are covering here is that, especially Mr. Indraveer, when you covered design thinking, I think our education board need to think about introducing such kind of courses into even primary or maybe at least secondary education level perspective. If you don't start teaching to the young generation early on about concepts like design thinking, it is very hard to build those kind of mindset later on, because you already start carrying some baggage in your head. with this what we do. And I think a great point from Mr. Sanjeev, Mr. Ravinder, and Mr. Ashish around MSME area. Industrial IoT is definitely an interesting topic. Although, like, I've covered most of the questions that our panelists, our attendees are asking as part of the panel question. There are a few more which are coming up. One which is very critical and interesting is that are you hiring in the post-COVID market for IoT? Because there are many now who are looking for job. So if any one of you are hiring, I'm for sure hiring aggressively in Napino. But anyone is hiring aggressively, please let us know. I think that has impacted many engineers, many good people who have unfortunately lost opportunity in the market and are looking for areas to come back into their career. So everyone is nodding their head.
We
I think
are
everyone is hiring.
Everybody.
Good. Yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Kare even raised his hand, so I think he's hiring too aggressively. So guys, you can reach out to Wipro and Mr. Ashish Kare. So I think with that, I would like to thank all of you and each one of you. Really, I think this was an amazing event with the technical challenges we have been facing, which is part and parcel of doing online events. I hope we can soon do a face-to-face in-person event. So thanks for covering all the dimensions of this key topic today. We will come up with more topics in the future. So now I would like to call upon Mr. Ashish Chintal, who is going to run two things. One is the quiz, and after that, give a thank you note to the audience and to our speakers and as well as our partners and collaborators. So over to you, Mr. Ashish Chintal. Thanks.
Thank you, Vinay. Okay, so this is the most exciting part of the event because you have a chance to win goodies. So before we start the quiz, let me first announce the winners of last time. So number one is Nikhil Rawat, number two is Saurabh Thakur, and number three is Sharat K. So all three of you can expect a call from our side and to present you the goodies from our side as part of winning the quiz number one. For quiz number two, friends,
Ashish, your voice is little coming low. Yeah.
Yeah, is it better now?
Oh yeah, no, this is better. Your mic, yeah. Great, thank you.
Yeah, it was. Okay, so I just announced the winners for quiz one. That was Nikhil Rawat, Saurabh Thakur, and Sharat K. You guys can expect a call from our side to hand over the goodies for quiz number one. For quiz number two, you can see a small a tab on the left hand side bottom of your screen. Don't yet start, but once you click on the quiz button, a new page will load and there'll be set of 10 questions which you are required to answer within a time span of 5 minutes. The moment the page gets loaded, the timer will start, and at the end of the quiz, a feedback form will come up, which will be simple. 3 questions, should hardly take you 30 seconds, but it will go a long way in collecting feedback from you guys and help us improve our event and help us make it bigger and better, so that next time you can find more insights and more relevant insights that you're looking for. Okay, so now you guys can go ahead and click, and once you finish, we can come back for a short note around what we have in store for our next event. Go ahead and click the quiz button.
Ashish, I assume our speakers can also play the quiz, but they won't be eligible, right? Yes. Including me and you.
They won't be eligible for the goodies.
Great. So has the quiz started, Ashish, just to confirm?
It's an individual loading, so people should be able to play it.
Okay, great. I think we have closer to 75 people now who are active, as I see on the screen. I think some people are asking kindly give the quiz link in chat. It's very simple. If you're on the screen, whoever is asking this question, there is a quiz button at the bottom of the video as Ashish explained. Just click on that. That should take you to the quiz page, please.
Yeah, just scroll down a bit. You'll be you can see a tab quiz button.
Yeah, and you should be able to just click on that and start the quiz.
Yep.
Yes, and the quiz is 5 minutes only. Some people are asking this too short of a time, but that's the format here to test your skills. It's a rapid fire kind of. I don't think the questions are very complicated. They're multi-choice. Ashish, I hope you did not make the quiz very aggressive. Huh?
No, it's absolutely not very tough at all.
I think Seiji can let us know once most of the people have done with the quiz, then we can move on. Meanwhile, I think while people are taking quiz, Ashish, do you want to cover any other topic?
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk about Napino for those of you who don't know much about Napino. So we are one of the leading electronics manufacturing company in India, primarily serving to automobile sector. But over last 3.5 years, we have a new division called IoT, and we've been doing a lot of work in that space. So our strong capabilities are usually in the domain of electronics design, manufacturing, testing, certification, and even value engineering, which means once you build a hardware product, we can also help you bring down your per unit cost so that you can improve your profit margins. We have a large set of electronics manufacturing plants spread across Manesar, Haridwar, and Halol in Gujarat, where we employ close to 6,000 people. And we manufacture automotive components and IoT products upward of 20 million units a month. So that's a very large scale. And in fact, if you have any business needs, I would invite you to visit our plant and see for yourself the kind of world-class machinery and the processes that we follow. If you wish to do that, please drop in a mail to us at info@napino.com, info@napino.com, and we'll be able to arrange a visit and we'll be able to host you at our plant.
Just to rectify, 20 million units per annum, you mean, right? Not per month. Huh?
It's per annum.
You said, yeah, per annum. Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the other part. Are we done with the quiz? Shazik, can you give a comment on that?
Yeah, quiz is completed.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, the last part is, of course, a thank you note where we had a tremendous support from all of you as participants, but more so to Vinay for being such a wonderful moderator as always, and to our esteemed panelists, Sanjeev, Indraveer, Ravindra, and Ashish Kare for taking time out over the weekend and contributing towards our Napino Knowledge Series event. And we look forward to more such contribution and participant from all of you. So our next event is planned for 5th of December, and watch out for your inbox. We'll be sending an email wherein you can register for our upcoming event. We are planning to have an event around wearables, but you'll come to know as we finalize that.
Great. Thank you, Ashish. Also, I would like to thank our partners, IoT NCR community and Leaders and Innovators Forum, from being a very great partner in the past in the event as well, and this one as well, for helping us to promote the event in their communities and helping us with other logistics. Thanks to Ashish as well for a wonderful quiz setup that you have done, and to Anshul, who's part of our digital marketing team, to Confia's team for giving us this platform, and once again to all the panelists. Thank you. Ashish, anything else that we need to cover, or we can say goodbye?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Seiji, I think now you can stop the broadcast. We'll see all of you 5th December. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.